Intro for the 10th time. I was watching a man.
We're talking about things that we watched on television and film
Again.
this week for the 10th time.
Sound check.
And you watched a man watching The Dark Knight Rises on a train. He was watching it with Chinese.
I believe it's Chinese. Subtitles.
Subtitled, okay. And it had got to the point
We weren't sharing headphones. How else would I know? It was playing out loud for everyone.
It had got to the point where Batman is trying to diffuse. He's not diffusing it, is he? He's just trying to get it out of the area. And by the way, I've watched Doctor Who and Rocky 2 and Vanity Fair.
And Vikings.
It's a little bit raunchy.
But they're not the best moments. It's Tom Shires, the ghost with the most. It says it on my top.
It really does. He's wearing a Beetlejuice. How many times?
3.
If I say ever 3 times during the course of my life, he will appear.
I think they have to be in quick succession.
But does he define how quick succession?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
No job's too small, so it'll come anyway.
All right. So
what's written on your clothes?
I have nothing on my clothes.
Mike Island.
Blank.
It is the Shires and Island Agenda, where we talk about movies and more.
We do indeed, and this week we're going to be discussing the 3 biggest news stories from the world of entertainment.
We are. The small screen will cause big problems for Mike Island in this week's awkward quiz, may contain spoilers.
We've also got a one-off discussion, which this week is inspired by one of the big films out at the moment. We're talking about Venom. No, we're not. We're talking about A Star Is Born.
And Guilty Pleasure's gone the other way.
Yes, we're talking about inverse guilty pleasures, which isn't a reference to Vikings.
Absolutely not. But we start with the big 3 news stories of the week. That's coming up right now.
Agenda, you fool.
You're listening to the Shires and Island Agenda. Shires and Island Agenda on the Shires and Island Network and HWD Hospital Radio. More music variety. We're going to be talking all about tweets tonight, I dare say, but we'll start with one of the more pleasant ones, although a bit cryptic as well. Chris Evans, a.k.a. Steve Rogers, a.k.a. Captain America, a.k.a. Nomad, but they never called him that, a.k.a. Cap, has effectively signed off the role. He said on Twitter, an emotional day on set after 8 years. Thank you to everyone. So he's not said goodbye, but he may as well have done.
Yeah, it's an easy statement to make, but sue me, I'm going to make it. The definitive Captain America.
I think so. I'll be honest, I can't name the actor from the 90s one, but he was brilliant.
Oh, he's the nephew of an author. Oh, it's really going to bug me now. It's not John Steinbeck's nephew or something like that, is it? But
Bobby Dahl?
It could be Bobby Dahl, yeah.
Bobby Blyton.
No, but do you think his Captain America is going to stand the test of time, to the extent that they are clearly not going to recast the part anytime soon?
Yeah, it was interesting thing that I was thinking about earlier on today, is that does Marvel eventually come to a point with these films where they wipe the slate clean and begin again? Because at some point they're going to want to revisit Captain America. Or are they? Well, or are we living in an MCU where actually, once you're dead, potentially, because we don't know that for a fact, that you are dead, someone might assume the mantle of Captain America, but Steve Rogers no longer exists?
But if that's the case, you do have to wonder, going forward, are they going to kill off these characters as they go along? Because it becomes too big a thing then of 5 films down the line and the Earth and the universe are in danger at some point. Aren't they going to think, let's call Captain America back? He might be in his 50s now, but he's still going to be useful.
And he should still look the same.
Yes,
that's a difficult thing as well.
Yeah.
So we already said the mantle might be passed. Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier,
Falcon,
indeed, might take on the red, white, and blue. But also, when we're thinking about defining roles, there might have been a time where we thought that Chris Evans was Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four, and I was almost going to say the original Fantastic Four. Of course, it's not. There is that woeful version that never made it. It's a secret version, but at least the one that we've seen on the big screen. He, of course, now. Will he spend the rest of his career trying to get away from Captain America in the way that Mark Hamill took his entire career getting away from Luke Skywalker to come back and do it again?
I don't know. I think in Chris Evans' case, he's very keen on directing. So that may be where he decides to pursue his artistic endeavours.
Did you tell me about the film where he's on the train, that's a city on a train, and you have to make your way from one carriage to another? Was that you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
What was it called?
It wasn't Snowpiercer, was it? It might have been.
Snowpiercer?
Yeah.
If not, write it down. Killer title. And just on Avengers Infinity War Part 2, number 2 news, Mark Ruffalo on Jimmy Kimmel in the US this past week, and he said, apparently, the subtitle to the Infinity War sequel, he was bleeped. It was thought at first that he said Annihilation, which I think is quite a cool title for a kind of end-of-the-world type deal. But then some people have done some computer jiggery-pokery and wizardry, and apparently he says it's The Last Avenger. Now, they may be spoilers, they may not, because we don't know what's true at this point, but it would be a nice kind of mirror and symmetry to Captain America, The First Avenger, if indeed Chris Evans doesn't survive the film.
When do you think they will tell the stars what the name is? Wouldn't it just make sense you don't tell them until they're actually doing the press junkets?
Yeah, well, the film will have to have a name, won't it? So
Yes, but you could call it whatever you wanted. You could call it Blue Harvest if you wanted.
I think it's taken.
But it isn't. Yeah, but it isn't though, is it?
But it is, but it isn't. Rory's first kiss?
Well, I don't know about that, but I don't tell.
Do you know what film?
It sounds familiar. Is it one of the Batman?
It is,
film?
one of the Batmans.
Is it Dark Knight?
Dark Knight, yeah. It was Rory's first kiss. So interesting. I was just musing on this idea of Chris Evans. Will he embrace his time in the MCU? Will it become something that he's quite embittered by in the future? Literally, time will tell.
Most definitely it will. You're listening to the Shires and Island Agenda.
Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my agenda.
So moving on to movies that are most definitely in production, but at the very earliest stages of them. Barbie, a film about the Mattel doll, has been touted for a long time, and Amy Schumer was linked to starring in it. Or actually, I think she was officially confirmed as starring in it back in 2016. But it's been reported this week that not only has she dropped out of the production, I think there was a suggestion for a while that Anne Hathaway was going to take the senior role. Instead, it's now been reported that Mattel have linked up with Warner Brothers, and they're looking at Margot Robbie as playing the titular action figure. It's not an action figure really, Barbie, is it? What would you describe it?
She's a fashion doll.
Fashion doll, perfect. I think that's a perfect expression. Is it, I was about to say, is it something that's got legs?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Two of them, long.
What is it that means I am more prepared to accept a Transformers film because I think it's got some sort of plot to it than a Barbie film?
But there are numerous CGI Barbie films.
Yeah.
It's something they're doing for a long, long time. I think the trouble is, from what I read, that they're going to try and turn it into some kind of subversive, adult-style comedy.
That was certainly what was said when Amy Schumer was involved. I think they're taking it right back to the drawing board now. But do you think that would be the way to go with it? Because unlike Transformers, which is Hasbro, I think, because it's got a story to it and it's sort of an epic sweeping story anyway, if you can accept robots that turn into cars that turn back into robots smashing each other as epic. Barbie, do you have to be a bit more self-aware and postmodern about
Yeah, because
this?
otherwise you're going to have to make a very straight-laced, child-friendly film about Barbie in her fantastic world meets Ken. I don't know what the adversity is. That there's no enemy, is there? As far as I'm aware, I haven't spent much time in the Barbie aisle at formerly Toys R Us, now Smith's. Other shops are available, but there is no nemesis. There is no dark force in Barbie's life other than her credit card perhaps maxing out. So to turn it into a kind of maybe a Lego Movie vein would be good, in the sense that yes, we know that it's all a bit of a joke, nod, wink, wink. But still,
the heads are posable, aren't they?
Yeah. So they can't wink. They can definitely nod, but I don't think her actual eyelids move. I struggle to see narratively where that would go. But if you've got a star like Margot Robbie potentially attached, that's fantastic. The brand, you would hope, would kind of sell itself, but you have to sell it to the Barbie audience. And how can you do that whilst also maintaining some kind of element of, I don't want to say grit, because it's the wrong kind of project, but something a little bit more mature.
Okay. It's understood as well that Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984 director Patty Jenkins is circling, that is the expression that's used, circling the project. I like the image.
Is she in a car?
Like a raptor, I'm sort of imagining, going around the script for a potential Barbie film. Also, of course, Margot Robbie has got a relationship with Warner Brothers because of her time as Harley Quinn. I think her production company, Lucky Chap Productions, has got a first look, as they call it, deal with the Warner's brothers.
Jack's still there?
Jack is
He's still doing the business, isn't he?
he's still a presence on the studio lot.
And girl power continues, really, doesn't it? It seems to be a bit of a theme this week, in that Barbara Broccoli has come out and said no female Bond. Obviously, a black Bond is something that's been touted for some time. Female Bond, or at least a female villain, has also been mooted.
There seems to have been a groundswell of opinion, certainly high-profile opinion, that this is something that the Bond producers should think about. Theresa May, of all people, has said that there should be...
on all the big issues.
There should be a female Bond in the future. I genuinely don't know which way I come down on this, because my instinct is to say, no, I think James Bond is a male character who has certain beliefs and opinions. By the same token, I still think, well, would I be happy to see an all-female production of Hamlet, say? And I go, well, yeah. So where they're both, neither of them is reality, both of them are drama. What is my problem?
I think...
Don't start.
Well, quite the list. I just agree in a sense that what the Broccoli's have said, that if he's a male character, keep a male character and then create something that's equally as good. Why do you have to change what's established to make it, female and call her Jane Bond or whatever it is? Why can't we actually create a universally loved female character that can take the place of Bond, or at least stand toe-to-toe with Bond?
And does that necessarily mean it has to be in a quote-unquote shared universe? Because there have been talks about spin-offs before with Jinx from Die Another Day and Wei Lin even as well. Or is this Barbara Broccoli basically saying, look, we've got our thing, we're happy with our thing.
If someone else
wants to make something that's got a female lead, go and do it. Don't keep turning to us to make a massive spy franchise. And there have been attempts. We've discussed them on previous incarnations of this show before about...
Well, there's some Salt, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Salt and Atomic Blonde and...
Red Sparrow?
Yes, Red Sparrow. I suppose to an extent, Red Sparrow. Is it that until one of them proves that they've got the franchise legs, we're not going to know?
Lots of legs on that show.
We're not going to know.
We won't know. And then the other big news coming out of the DC Universe, other than their cryptic tweet, well, not so cryptic tweet, that we'll get to later on, is Batwoman. She has arrived.
Yes, Ruby Rose, I think Australian actress, if I'm right in saying, he's going to be playing the part of Kate Kane. I was trying to remember what the character's real name quotes.
Her own name's probably better.
Do you think her own name is more of a superhero's name? Probably, yeah. Her first image from the forthcoming CW-produced Batwoman series, although she's actually appearing in the team-up run of Supergirl, The Flash and Arrow coming in the autumn, has been released and looks impressive.
Yeah, people are hating on the cape.
I
saying that it looks a bit kind of flimsy. It's got a strange... is it just a red tint around the edges?
Yes, in the comics, the interior of the cape is bright red, so I think they've decided they don't want to go for that. They want to go for something a little bit more subtle for a woman that's in a bat costume.
With bright red hair poking out the top of the cowl, yeah.
I think the cape's a little bit short, but other than that, I think it's a very good costume.
Does Kate Kane, when she's herself, also have bright red hair?
No, it's a wig.
Nice! She's thought about it.
Yeah, I think there was an incident in a Batman comic a couple of years ago where Batman, when she starts up as Batwoman,
sues for copyright infringement?
No, compliments her on her performance as a vigilante, but says that hair isn't going to do you any favours. And she sort of smiles because she realises her wig is that good that it's fooled Batman. So yeah, it's another aspect of a disguise.
Weave woman.
It's round, it's purple, it shows you what to view. It's Mike's Big W.
Shires Down Agenda, more music variety, HWD Hospital Radio if you're listening in Dewsbury and District Hospital. Otherwise, you're listening online on the YouTube, yes, definite article, at the Shires and Island Network. It's that time of the week again where Mike has been through, he's made his mark, and it's now time for him to share his findings. Review film of the week.
As was
Mike's Big W recommendation that is random.
It's when I go through the Freeview films and decide which ones stand out for the next 7 days or so. And we're going to start off with a film that is on Saturday evening, this coming Saturday, Bedazzled on Talking Pictures TV.
Talking Pictures TV. 63
81.
Oh, it's a big one.
You need to go a bit higher for Talking Pictures TV. And it's the original version of Bedazzled, directed by Stanley Donen and starring Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, as opposed to the later version of the story about a man who considers selling his soul to the devil and stars. Do you remember who starred in the 1990s remake?
Brendan Fraser?
Yeah, he's good in Trust, by the way, making a comeback.
And Liz Hurley?
Liz Hurley, well done.
Yes.
Pull that one out. Well done. Yeah, I've seen.
I quiz you. That's how it works.
I've seen the remake a few times, and it got awful reviews, and I don't think its reputation has got that much better in the years since. I don't think it's quite as bad as it's all made out to be.
So with Brendan Fraser, did something happen? I only say this because clickbait. You're aware of clickbait on
I'm
the internet.
aware
These
of
little
it,
stories that appear and they make. There was the real reason why Hollywood won't cast Brendan Fraser anymore. Have you clicked?
I haven't.
I haven't. Have you?
I haven't clicked. There have been things that have been said. Let's leave it at that.
Grey Watershed.
Yeah, very much Grey Watershed. But I'm pleased to say, I just mentioned it, he is back starring or a supporting role in the Getty kidnapping drama Trust, which is masterminded, not the actual kidnapping, by Danny Boyle. And he's very good playing a Texan private investigator, I suppose, a security chief in that. I recommend it. And he's also going to be providing the voice of Robot Man in the forthcoming DC streaming version of the Doom Patrol.
Yeehaw, that's the Texan one. I don't know what noise a robot makes. Beep bop.
So yes, it's the 1967 original production of Bedazzled that is on Talking Pictures TV, and it's very much of its time, sort of swinging 60s, but you've got a very sardonic, sarcastic Peter Cook and a somewhat befuddled and bedazzled Dudley Moore. Also appearances from Eleanor Braun and Raquel Welch, if I recall correctly. Mrs. Doubtfire is on Sunday, on Film 4 Sunday afternoon. Chris Columbus directing Robin Williams. Is it the turning point for Robin Williams when he starts to go into films that are a little bit too saccharine?
Yeah, I think by the time you get to Flubber, it's game over really. Flubber is and Bicentennial Man. What is that about? I don't say
it's
robot.
a robot. It's a robot.
Beep bop.
Brendan Fraser not voicing the robot in Bicentennial Man, but yeah, it did great box office. Mrs. Doubtfire
And thin Pierce Brosnan.
It
he
is.
looks ill. He needs that meal that they have.
It was 93, so it was a couple of years before he was fattened up for Goldeneye.
Bulked up for Bond.
Also on Sunday on BBC Two at 11:15, a film that you've been to see at the cinema, Selma, which tells the story of the 1965 voting rights marches to Montgomery.
Yeah, it was one of those where my wife and I went through a spate on Monday nights of leaving work and going to see just a film at the cinema. And normally we have this kind of idea of it has to be a cinema film, so we're talking like a big blockbustery special effects fest. But then we had this spate of going to see the likes of Imitation Game and Selma, almost what I call proper films. And I saw that, and then I watched The Butler in quick succession, because that had been recommended as well. Selma is by far the superior of the two films. It's still harrowing because of the civil rights movement and a lot of the injustices and the violence that sadly occurred around that time. But I was inspired and I was moved, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, you see the years when this happened, and it's not that far removed from where we are now. So in a sense, great to see how far we've come, but also shocking because it's recent history.
Also on Sunday evening on Channel 4, it's The Fault in Our Stars, which stars, appropriately enough, Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort playing a pair of teens that are suffering from cancer and end up meeting, I think it's a support group, and fall in love, and charts their romance, really. Do you know the Shakespeare quote? Do you know which Shakespeare play it comes from?
It comes from my favourite Shakespeare
it's a
play,
misquote, actually, but yeah.
which is Hamlet.
Julius Caesar.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the only reason I know it, really.
So what's the context in Julius Caesar?
It's Cassius is trying to persuade Brutus to reconsider his tacit support for Caesar and to think about ultimately assassinating him. He says it's not the fault is not in our stars that we are slaves, but in ourselves, I think is the quote. He's a persuasive chap, that Cassius. I'm going to say doesn't work out well for Caesar.
He did it well as well. Very emotional.
Switching to something very different on Monday, it's Sister Act with Whoopi Goldberg.
Oh man, Where to start? I think it might be sacrilege again. I might prefer the sequel,
Genuinely?
but that's only because of the whole kind of school setting and the gospel choir competition in that. But you wouldn't have the sequel without the first one. So if you like the music of Motown, if you like gospel music, and if you like a good time, triple threat, baby.
But our Freeview film of the week from 2007, and it's got a bit of a Bond connection, of course, as well as a Chris Evans connection and Michelle Yeoh. We're ticking off a lot of boxes. Sunshine, directed by...
Lollipops and rainbows, no?
No, a bit too close to the sun, it'd melt. It's Danny Boyle's film about a mission to save the sun after it's going to go cold.
All right.
It's a very,
doesn't just go bang?
No, it doesn't. The light of the sun and the heat of the sun is fading, and humanity has got to save itself by sending up a massive bomb,
No, I mean, scientifically,
massive bomb to start the sun up again.
If it goes supernova, I thought it just went
No,
bang.
no, supernova is going bang. This is the sun that's going cold.
All right, so it's not accurate then.
I think there's a level of accuracy. Whether or not Mark Strong plays a mad space captain who has got superpowers, I leave to the scientists to tell me. But Danny Boyle liked it.
Does he have a ring?
He doesn't have a ring, unfortunately not. But yeah, it stars Chris Evans, Rose Byrne, Cillian Murphy, so there's another connection to Dark Knight, Michelle Yeoh, Cliff Curtis, who I think played a Green Lantern in Green Lantern. And also Benedict Wong, who was in Doctor Strange. He was Doctor Strange's assistant.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know.
Is he called Wong? I think he might be called Wong in it.
Is that his character? No. Okay, I'm not sure. Make sure you tune into that on Wednesday evening. I say it's actually Wednesday morning at 1:30 a.m.
No, technically as well. You've learned your lesson.
1:30 a.m. on the Sony Movie Channel, which is channel number
32.
He's correct.
Oh! Welcome back. You've played a baked blinder all night, Mike. Are you ready for the final round?
I'll get your coat.
For tonight's grand prize, the Top Gun original soundtrack on minidisc, your category is Not So Catchy Phrases. I've taken all the fun and creativity out of some of TV's best loved catchphrases. All you have to do is give me the catchier version and the name of the show they're from.
Okay.
There are bonus points for impressions of the characters who say them. And the round ends when one of us taps or otherwise submits. Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
Silence! Begin! Pay attention, as I am not in the habit of repeating things.
Listen very carefully. I shall say this only once.
Do the voice.
It's Michelle from Hello Hello.
That fits you well, sir.
Suits you.
What's the show?
Fast Show.
Absolutely. You don't possess anything bovine, adult male.
Don't have a cow, man. From Bart Simpson of The Simpsons.
Our emporium is designed for those from the vicinity. It is not intended for those from other locations. Take your bother causing elsewhere.
This is a local shop for local people. We don't want trouble here. From League of Gentlemen.
Do I look troubled by this?
I'm not sure.
Do I look troubled by this?
Bothered. Is it just bothered? She said bothered. Am I bothered?
Am I bothered?
Am I bothered?
Yeah.
Catherine Tate. Was it called Catherine Tate?
Catherine Tate Show, yeah. Floor Walker, are you currently available?
I'm free. From the Grace Brothers programme with old Mr. Grace.
The Grace Brothers programme.
Are you being served?
I am not. In my general direction, in your general direction.
To you, to me, the Chuckle Brothers?
What's the show?
Chuckle Vision.
Chuckle Vision. Chuckle Vision, indeed.
I think one of the Chuckle Brothers was in Doctors this week.
All right. You're a bad man. I am unwilling or unable to comprehend or accept this information.
I don't believe it! Victor Meldrew from We'll Put in the Grave.
An abundance of currency.
Loads of money. Was it Harry Enfield and Chunks?
Technically not. He did the character before that show existed.
thought
That kind
that,
of
yeah.
launched, so you can just put various. Name any show you like, you can have it.
He was on Top of the Pops singing the song.
You get loads of money. The big up the house or do up the house.
Nolan's House Party.
Crinkly Bottom. The moment has come for transformation.
The moment's come for transformation. Banana Man?
Could be a catchphrase. He didn't have a catchphrase about changing, did he? The moment has come for transformation.
It's morphing time.
It is morphing time, like Island Show.
Power Rangers Turbo.
No, because they don't say let's go turbo.
Is that what they said?
Yeah, I don't think they say it's morphing time. Let's go turbo.
So what about Space Rangers?
What about them?
To Infinity and Beyond.
Have we reached an agreement or not?
Deal or no deal?
From
Deal or no deal?
in this way.
In this,
way.
I've got no.
In this way.
Just like that. Just like that. It's Tommy Cooper's show, was it?
Yeah.
called Tommy
Is that one of
Cooper?
those that technically didn't say?
Well, they never mentioned it was. What was it listed as in the magazine?
No. The name of the show was definitely that. But I mean, was it a catchphrase that he didn't say?
I think he did say just like that. Just
Yeah, but was it as many times as we think he did?
No.
Is it an elementary My Dear Watson type deal or Beam Me Up Scotty?
Well, no, he definitely didn't say Beam Me Up Scotty.
No.
But he definitely did say, I think, elementary idea was. Just once.
I am able to destroy the fruit of the vine.
I will crush them.
Why have you got Russian? I am able to destroy the fruit of the vine.
Didn't it Vigo from Ghostbusters 2? I will crush them.
That's he's from Trago, isn't it?
Is it even right?
No, that's what you're doing. That's not the answer to the question.
What is the question?
It's like,
I've forgotten this is a quiz.
I am able to destroy the fruit of the vine.
Something to do with drinking, I don't know.
What's the fruit of the vine?
Wine.
No, the actual fruit that grows on the
Grapes?
vine. Yeah. If you destroy a grape, what are you doing?
Ooh, I crush a grape. Larry Grayson from the Generation Game.
I've written down as Crackerjack.
Was it Crackerjack who said that?
Yeah.
He definitely presented the Generation Game as well, didn't he?
Absolutely.
Shut that door. Shut that door was the Generation Game.
That's it. Your
Now,
personality.
you get a point, or do I get?
I've lost it in so many ways. Your personality and actions are ghastly, but I'm still a fan of yours.
Oh, is it, what was it? You are awful, but I like you.
Ooh, you are
Ooh,
awful.
you are
yeah.
awful, but I like you. Dick Henry. Was it Dick Henry?
Dick Henry Show. The data we've gathered indicates.
Our survey says family fortunes.
Indeed. My thinking machine responds in the negative.
Computer says no. Little Britain.
I am extremely grateful to you.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Was it?
Thank you very much.
Taxi.
Taxi, yeah, Latka.
Yeah.
And a Kaufman, excellent. And having commenced this line of inquiry, I will complete it.
Let me give us this line of inquiry. I've started to finish.
From?
Oh, Mastermind.
Yes, you are, Mike Island. And the winner!
Push his buttons and turn them on. Sent from the future to beat the motor. 900 channels watch paint on the wall. He's the hero who'll save us all. Goggletron, Goggletron, put it on, it's called a Goggletron. Goggletron, Goggletron.
Shires Down the Agenda, more music variety, HWD Hospital Radio, if you're listening online or in the hospital. Otherwise, it's the Shires and Island Network on YouTube. And yes, Goggletron is back again with us this week to look at a story that obviously pertains to one of the biggest shows on TV.
And I've seen it.
Absolutely, you have. A curse that is very real, it seems, relating to this show. And generally, how we treat those who perhaps make mistakes in the public eye and whether they should be on TV or not, particularly when it's kind of a family show. I think there's an awful lot of morals and ethics, I guess, to go along with this story.
Yeah, we're talking, of course, about the fact that comedian Sean Walsh and his...
Double N?
Yes, it is. It's a choice. And his dance partner, Katya Jones, have hit the headlines after being caught kissing in public. The pair, obviously, the dance partners on Strictly Come Dancing, and Sean Walsh's relationship to an actress, Rebecca Humphries, has broken down because of it, and the fallout from it continues. I think apologies have been made, but not necessarily taken especially well. And anyway, we're not going to be talking about the specifics of this, but I do feel uncomfortable when people sit in moral judgments of individuals who haven't broken any laws. It's an unpleasant situation, but I don't like the idea of people saying they shouldn't be on television because they've done this, when, as I say, it's a very sad, but
trust has been broken, hasn't it?
But it's a private trust, and the only reason it's become public is because paparazzi took a particular photo.
Yeah, absolutely. So, would it be a different story if they were married people and this would happen? Perhaps would they take a different stand?
Maybe.
I'm not sure. Is it a case of no contract has been signed effectively between these two individuals, therefore he's free to act how he chooses? However, he's done it in a very public way, and there was no way it was going to be anything other than a huge media sensation. But you stand by the fact that they should dance.
Yeah,
on Saturday.
I'm sort of in the position of saying they should dance, but if the British public don't want to vote for them, they shouldn't. They shouldn't have to, as it were.
Isn't the whole show, though, doesn't it become a popularity contest anyway? How much are people sat there at home and objectively watching each dance and going, you know what, I'm going to vote for that dance or that couple because that's the best dance, rather than you've got your favourite, so you vote for your favourite?
Well, it's also, I think the other thing to bear in mind is that you are actually voting for the people you want to stay, and you're not voting for the people you want to leave. So
it's positive voting.
Yes, so if it was negative voting, you do have to think, well, he would definitely be out this weekend, or the pair of them would definitely be out, whereas I still think they will probably go this weekend, but I think it will simply be because people won't vote for them as opposed to people actively voting against them.
The pseudo-businessman in me says that they're dancing on Saturday because the BBC think it's the right thing to do, but also because people are going to watch. Now, is that a very cynical, almost kind of Machiavellian approach on my part, and also on the part of the BBC, or is that a real thing, that this is ratings? And do they need them?
I do genuinely think it's a case of the BBC knowing that we're going to be damned either way, so isn't it better to be damned for letting the people involved make the choice themselves rather than kicking them out, rather than trying to sit on a moral high ground. But yeah, they won't be exactly unhappy about the fact there are going to be people tuning in who've never watched Strictly Come Dancing before to see what happens.
People will dance. You're not going to see anything other than that, are you?
Well, yeah, again,
or will they make a statement or some kind of...
Reports going into this have suggested that the judges earlier on this week were talking about, were talking to the producers saying we don't think they should perform. I don't know how you deal with that.
And that's dangerous, isn't it? Because obviously, as far as I'm aware, half the vote comes from the judges' scores, doesn't it? Is it some kind of halfway house between the judges' scores plus the public vote? So
I would have to assume that the judges, once the decision has been made that they're staying on the programme, the judges have to go, well, we're just...
You have to trust them to give the right scores.
Yeah. I don't think it's a great situation by any means, but as you say, I think ratings-wise, the BBC are going to come out of it pretty well. Also, you mentioned the Strictly Curse earlier on, and although I don't think that's ever been referred to on the programme, it is noticeable that they do...
It's probably like Beetlejuice, you don't want to say it too many times.
When they've got single people dancing passionately together, they do occasionally make reference to the fact that these are two attractive people who are dancing passionately together. So they play it up on that front, and I don't think they downplay it even if they don't officially mention it. So I do wonder if it's a case that they've been bitten on this front. Whether people have been bitten or not, I don't want to officially say.
Mike Ireland, student of the game.
We need the dog agenda.
I've got a lot of fond memories of that dog.
You're listening to the Shires and Ireland Agenda.
Still the Shires and Ireland Agenda, still on YouTube at the Shires and Ireland Network, or indeed HWD Hospital Radio. Now, we signed off last week by saying that we are Shires and Ireland. That was a nod to Venom because of the social media war that had broken out between the alien symbiote and a singer, come actress, and an actor
who can sing a bit
And plays guitar.
and plays guitar.
He's
Yeah,
got skills.
because A Star Is Born, the fourth incarnation of the film, I think came out originally in the 1930s and was then.
So did it go supernova, or did you just kind of cool down and then warm back up again?
Thanks to Chris Evans. No, the original one was all about an actress breaking through in Hollywood, and I think that was the same with the Judy Garland one in '54, I want to say, and she goes on to win an Oscar. It was in the 1970s one with Chris Christopherson and Barbara Streisand, who was really the driving force behind the thing, where he changed it up and made it into a former rock star or an aging rock star and an up-and-coming singer, and I think she wins a Grammy at the end of that.
It's a Grammy.
So we thought, why don't we talk about musicians as actors, actors as musicians, musicians who act as musicians, and also miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous? Is that an album or an artist?
No, I mean people who are sort of equally famous for both, to the extent you don't really think of them as one or the other, you do just think of them as being both.
Go on, name a
Well,
name.
no, if you think back to the golden age of Hollywood, do you think of Bing Crosby as an actor or as a
Oh,
singer?
that's a good shout. That's a good shout.
Do you think of Doris Day as an actress or as a singer?
I might go actress on that one.
Do you think you would?
Yeah, I think I would.
Okay. What about, to bring it a bit more up to date, Cher, Jennifer Lopez?
Share Jennifer Lopez with who?
Do you think Cher is an actress who can sing, or do you think she's a singer who can act?
I think she's a
And-
singer
and
who can
by act,
almost. She can almost act. I've not seen Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, but I am told her performance is somewhat plastic.
Okay. And Jennifer Lopez? Do you actually know which she did first?
I bet she was in like a Spanish soap opera,
She was
breaking through.
She was an actress who became a singer. Yeah.
but singer.
Is that what you definitely?
Made in Manhattan.
I don't know whether she was or whether she wasn't. It's up to.
She's Jenny from the Block. They have
But they do
blocks
have
everywhere.
blocks, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Will Smith.
Actor. Well, yeah.
He was a rapper before he appeared on
Yeah.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, so he was a.
Yeah, but where was
sorry,
he?
sorry, he was a rapper before he was on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Was he just rapping? Just like where? Was he known? Was
He was
a
in
known
Philadelphia,
entity?
born and raised in the playgrounds where I spent most of his days.
Yeah, but I could
chilling
say-
out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all shooting some b-ball outside of the school. Well, there were a couple of guys. They were up to no good. They started making trouble in his neighbourhood. How many fights did he get in?
Got in one little fight.
One
Everyone
little
got
fight.
scared.
Yes, you did. Where did you send him?
She's moving with your auntie and Uncle Bel Air.
Bel-Air. Yeah. He
Dum,
whistled.
dum, 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 dum,
So,
dum.
what is it that musicians have that can sometimes lend themselves to acting?
I think it's the fact that a decent musician, one that's worth their salt, are well and truly in kind of communication and in sync with their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to be a performer and a singer, you've got to be able to convey a message. So I don't think there's too much difference. There is difference, but not too much difference between conveying a song and a meaning on stage as there is to convey a scene in front of the cameras or in a theatre.
But sometimes they have a presence that can overwhelm the film that they're in. I mean, we joked about it there.
It depends how the film's built around
Yes,
the star.
I was
doesn't
going
it?
to say, because Cher plays Cher most of the time. Although, to be fair to her, in films in the 1980s, for example, like
Mermaids?
like I was thinking Moonstruck, but yeah, Mermaids as well. And Silkwood, I think, as well, where she plays the best friend of Meryl Streep's character, and that's a very hard-hitting drama. Sometimes she could sort of go down that line, but more often than not, she's playing a version of Cher, we would assume. Do you think that means that a lot of musicians, singers usually that become actresses, do have a limited range?
Well,
It's all
maybe.
about the range.
But no, it is, for example, if I remember I was ill one time, still living at my parents' house, put on Sky Movies, and it was Crossroads, wasn't it? The Britney
Yes, I was
Spears
going to
film.
ask about Crossroads.
And that just felt very much like Britney Spears in a film. So that's why I say it's very much how the film is built around that individual. But cameos can be jarring, not to hate again on Die Another Day, but when Madonna shows up, it's not, there's James Bond's, well, she's not his fencing instructor, it's Gustav Graves' fencing instructor. It's, there's Madonna, and why is she talking to James Bond? So I think you've got to be very clever and subtle about how you introduce these stars, because that's the problem. They're already a famous face anyway, and if they're not blending in the right way to the scene, then they're nothing but a distraction.
What do you think, therefore, about using musicians or singers as themselves in films about themselves, but it is fictionalised versions of themselves? The best example is probably Spice World, the movie. No, the best example is Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, so I think that's good because they weren't trying to portray that as any real kind of reality, if you will. I think you still know watching that yeah, this is a scripted thing. My concern would be that how true to actual life is one of those projects ever going to be, because you have the person that's life it is involved in it. So I think you will lose objectivity, but it looks the best because it's their face.
And what about actors playing famous musicians? Why is it Hollywood goes back to a well of musical biopics? Is it easier to do that in a way than it is there are lots of films about authors and the like, but is it easier with music because ultimately you can play some of the music?
That's true.
If you're talking about a great novelist, it's much harder to
have him just sat at his desk or her desk,
Yes.
writing away or tapping away
Yes.
on a laptop. I think the thing is, with the very best of the best in the music world, they're ready-made characters. They're already larger than life. They're already more colourful, more flamboyant, more risque, more out there. So obviously we have Bohemian Rhapsody dropping in the not too distant future. And is there any more a ready-made character and persona and part that people will be fighting to play than Freddie Mercury? Well, no, there isn't.
Rocket Man, Elton John.
Yeah, there's so much there to be done and to be played with that I think actors would be salivating at those kind of roles.
Obviously, this isn't specific just to musicians being depicted in films, but do you have a problem with how accurate depictions can be? Because obviously, we've touched upon it before, you're Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney wasn't especially happy with the Buddy Holly story because it's wildly inaccurate. Do you have a problem with that if someone made a Paul McCartney biopic?
Yeah, exactly.
And they got basic things wrong or just discarded information.
Yeah, but then again, I think if you want the truth, well, you're probably never going to get it. That's the fact. So you can read all the biographies, autobiographies. No one's going to be the villain in their own story. So if they're in it, it's going to be all changed or fluffy around the edges. Certain things will be omitted. And that's just how if you were in your own film, you wouldn't think, that episode of my life that makes it really bad, shall we have that in? Well, probably not. But Paul McCartney, no angel.
Is that the title of the film?
Could be. But even in his own words, he said his brushes with the law. We know about his parking fine that we looked about his speeding, didn't we? And we know about his drugs bust in Japan that stopped a tour there in the late 80s, early 90s. So, it would make it an interesting story, but I want to see something near reality. I don't like going and doing the reading about a film to find out that some of my favourite bits from the film didn't happen or are fictionalised because we're making a poetic point.
You're also a big Brian Wilson fan, of course.
Yes, yeah.
Is it
Love and Mercy is a
Love and
very
Mercy?
good film.
Okay.
A lot of time for John Cusack. He did a good job.
Final 2 points. Have they got to sing their own stuff? If they're an actor portraying Paul McCartney or Brian Wilson or Buddy Holly, have they got to sing it themselves?
That's the danger. I've seen the trailer for Rocket Man and the singing's not very good. It's got a kind of Rocket Man. It's got a certain kind of Elton John about it. What about Bohemian Rhapsody? Are they using?
I'm not sure. The one I was.
Who on earth wants to take on trying to sing like Freddie Mercury?
Well, I know because I read a little bit about it. What's Love Got to Do with It? The Tina Turner and Ike Turner biopic. Angela Bassett wanted to record Tina Turner, her singing Tina Turner, but the studio wouldn't permit it because there simply wasn't enough time to train her to sing as Tina Turner would sing.
And I suppose when you got the original, why would you go for anything else?
Also, what category would you put, and this is the last one, would you put Spinal Tap into? Because they're a fictional band that became a real band.
Yeah. And maybe the Ruttles to an extent.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were ruttling beforehand. No, I'll have to pass on that one.
Okay. Musicians who became actors, everybody.
So it's still I say still, like, you know, we're just hanging in there and bearing with it. No, you're enjoying yourself. We're enjoying ourselves at the very least. Shires Now Agenda on the Shires Now Network and HWD Hospital Radio. Now, we mentioned earlier on about a tweet that had been sent out earlier on, this time by DC Universe. So what happened was, I saw it in the trails for Deadpool 2, talking about Cable. Deadpool said, "Oh, you're so kind of mean and gritty. Are you from the DC Universe?" So, months after the fact, DC Universe responded this week with a trail for Titans that then had, interspersed between the kind of flashing shots of Robin et al. Doing their thing, to Mr. Poole, "Suck it."
Grown up.
With basically with love from DC Universe. And to use a wrestling analogy, there was a time when there were two huge companies in America and neither would acknowledge the other. It was very much a case of, we are the only wrestling company in town, and the other company thought they were the only wrestling company in town.
Was it the WWF and was it WCW?
Oh, Mike Island, you impressed me.
I can remember one of them, the lesser one, was on Channel 5 for a while.
Yes, actually, they were both. I think WWF was on Channel 4 for a bit, and WCW did show up on Channel 5. So, are DC lowering themselves by effectively getting into a battle with Deadpool? Well, it's not a battle, is it? Marvel's already won.
It's a war, and DC have been crushed. I sort of think all's fair in love and Twitter, in respect of keep it clean, but other than that, I think having a pop at a competition, provided it's...
yeah, but who's having a pop at who? Because let's face it, Deadpool's had the funny pop at DC.
Kicking them when they're down.
DC have belatedly replied...
6 months after the fact.
But isn't that then just trying to ride on the coattails of a good Deadpool joke rather than making their own?
Well, is the argument we have sort of said ourselves, we're not especially interested in a TV series that promotes itself by having...
Are we helping them? Should we stop the link right there?
No, by having Robin swear almost directly into camera. And people have responded somewhat negatively to that. I think actually the reviews have started coming out for the first couple of episodes of Titans, and they're actually a bit more positive than expectations have been. But are they sort of playing into, well, look, people say we're dark and gritty, let's therefore have a joke about how dark and gritty we are. And I think the animated Titans have done something similar in the past as well, and sort of had a version of the animated Titans if they were as dark and gritty as the DCEU. So I think it's allowed.
All right, we didn't touch on this earlier, despite it being the third of our big three.
Yeah.
And that was that the reason why Robin swears, and we've covered this quite a bit on the previous shows, is that apparently in the Titans universe, Batman has effectively broken his one rule and is a killer. Yeah. And therefore Robin did not want to be under the tutelage of a murderer, and therefore that's why, I don't know why.
That's why he's got a potty mouth.
And that's why he's speaking about Batman in those kind of terms. Do you like a world that exists where Batman is the bad man?
Well, I've had to put up with a world where Superman's portrayed as a bad character for a while, so it's quite refreshing for the cool one to be portrayed negatively.
Is it the same character?
It's not, but then you also have to sort of go with the idea, if these stories are larger than one simple version, if they are in effect modern legends, modern myths, modern folk tales, they can be reinterpreted and reworked. I might not particularly like one version of how something is reworked, but people are just as free to copy it and to change it up in a different way as they want. Each individual creator is allowed to do that, provided it is all legal and above board.
And within the sense of the beauty of characters such as Batman, Joker, Superman is that they lend themselves to so many interpretations, but then the danger of that is that they lend themselves to so many interpretations.
In a way, I think, again, we have to go back to Marvel, and I think the thing that Marvel have done magnificently with the MCU is they've made changes, they've made adaptations, they've made alterations where they've needed to, but they've realised what the core of the character is, and they've stuck to it and they've played it to the hilt. And I think the problem for the DCEU and all the various DC versions is there are so many different interpretations that people start to lose whatever the core of the character is, and I think that then becomes a bit of an issue.
And briefly, we've talked about the DC Marvel war at length, but there are some, I don't say traitors, but there are some that have swap sides, defectors who are on the verge of swapping sides. Obviously, Patty Jenkins for a time was attached to For the Dark World. Yep. that didn't work out. She ended up making the highly successful Wonder Woman, and it's sure to be successful sequel.
Circling Barbie.
Absolutely. And James Gunn, who we spoke about on our first show, apparently linked to a potentially rebooted Suicide Squad 2 or Suicide Squad.
Warner Brothers have confirmed that they're in discussions with the Guardians of the Galaxy architect, James Gunn, to write with an eye to direct a Suicide Squad installment, a follow-up to the original. However, it's supposed to take it in a different direction and is therefore not being considered a direct sequel. Whether this means the likes of Will Smith, Margot Robbie, Viola Davis, they were the sort of three that came out of it with the most credit, as it were, and most popular. Whether they would come back, I don't know. I sort of think Suicide Squad is a franchise that lends itself to being completely changed up because most of the characters are killed off at the end of Suicide Squad Adventures. Therefore, if you wanted to just bring the good ones back and then approach it differently, you should be able to.
If you're wondering what that strange noise was, we need to explain. And that is that we have an item that we haven't used yet called Guilty Pleasures.
Yes. We're already reversing an item we haven't used.
Yes. So that is where we talk about things that we think we shouldn't like, but we do. Even though it's all right to like what you want.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a 33-year-old bloke, is it okay that I like this and so forth? What we've done is, and that was the ident for Guilty Pleasures, and we've done it backwards. So there's no need to adjust your sets or your devices. Everything's all right. Because this is inverse Guilty Pleasures.
Yes, what it is if you're listening way back at the start of the show, my sympathies. But I mentioned I watched Doctor Who, and we talked about it last week on episode 2. And the reaction to it, the first episode of this new series, showrunner Chris Chibnall, 13th Doctor Jodie Whittaker, has been overwhelmingly positive, and good on them. I'm pleased for them that it has been. However, I wasn't that taken with it. I thought it was really disappointing. I thought there were some good bits in it, but for the most part, I was really disappointed. That doesn't mean the series is going to be terrible. That doesn't mean that I don't think Jodie Whittaker can go on and be a great Doctor, but I thought the writing and the story in particular were really poor. And the fact that I was so much in a minority, it seems, among fans, made me think, am I wrong? And then made me sort of think, well, is there something to be discussed around the idea of, are there properties, films, whatever, that have got huge positive reactions, and for whatever reason you've sort of felt, no, I think I'm in the right in not liking this?
All right, so how many do you want to take? I came up with a list of 3. We don't have to do them all.
Yeah, I've got 3. I'll mention E.T. first because we touched upon it last week in Flight the Navigator being the superior film. But I can definitely mention 3.
I mean, that's just fact. Anyone who argues against that, I don't want to talk to them.
Okay, so what are you going against the grain of first?
I'm going against the grain, and you might even think, oh, well, no, that's not an inverse guilty pleasure. I'm going to go for 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
Because it's hailed as, you know, kind of seminal sci-fi, yada, yada, yada. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It starts out as kind of art house, strange setup type thing, tries to then be a sci-fi film to then break down into something that's trying to be cerebral, and I think fails. Visually, you can't argue with it, but it's all sizzle, no sausage.
I'm going to swim against the tide of The Matrix.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think the special effects are what grab people, and I think the pseudo-philosophy and sort of pseudo-scientific stuff seems to me very dated and felt very dated when I watched it back in, was it 1999, Matrix came out, because I'd read comics, and ideas like you get in The Matrix are really old hat if you've read comics, and to be honest, I don't think they're that groundbreaking in terms of film either. So I accept it made a huge impact, made a huge amount of money, but I just think it was really overblown, and I think the sequels proved that.
Absolutely. My next one, Lawrence of Arabia. It was on one of those lists of must-see films, and I did. I sat and watched that, Dr. Zhivago, maybe even the same day. It was a long one.
Yeah, it really was.
Lawrence of Arabia is a very downbeat, drab film about a man that pretty much just loses his mind. He's obviously very, very affected by the things that he's seen. Fantastic train sequence. You can't argue with the big train. Other than that, cinematography. Once again, fantastic vistas, would look amazing on a big screen. I get that, but not enough to justify it being a classic film.
I disagree on this one, but do you think that character may be something that's lacking? Because there aren't too, unless you're grabbed by Lawrence's mercurial character, there aren't too many other characters to latch onto. Also, not great female representation in the fact that there are 0 women in it. So I'm also going to admit to a pop culture blind spot when it comes to 2 of the films of Martin Scorsese, Raging Bull and Goodfellas.
Oh, okay.
Raging Bull, I fell asleep. And I don't think that's a great indicator.
Knockout.
Because I don't fall asleep very often when watching films, but I did when I was watching Raging Bull. And Goodfellas, it just meanders an awful lot, and there seems to be a lot of sort of chummy lads sort of stuff and humour. The idea of this is a gang that you want to be part of, and to me, I never really got ever appreciated why I'd want to be part of a gang. You know, the opening line of Goodfellas. Ever since I can remember, I wanted to be a gangster. And I thought, I never wanted to be a gangster, so...
What do you want to be?
I wanted to be Robin Hood. And I'm still waiting.
And my final instalment will be Avatar. 3D spectacle that sadly I missed out on, so maybe I could have been converted, if you will, had I seen it in 3D and IMAX. Environmental tale, sort of. It's really Pocahontas with blue people, yes. It's kind of computer gamesy in that you're this little person who's actually really this big avatar. Visually, once again, you can't argue with it. The tree and just the vistas and the environment, yes. But there's not much else there to get excited about. And the fact that there's going to be a second one and a third one, we're promised, he's still working on it. Why? I just don't see the point. One was too many.
And I'm going to conclude by saying Casino Royale.
Oh.
I was really taken with the idea of a James Bond that was going back to its roots. Unfortunately, those roots turned out to be blonde. I've never been a fan of Daniel Craig as James Bond. I like him as an actor. I like the fact that he's quite surly when he's on chat shows. I just don't buy him as James Bond. The best moment in his entire time as James Bond is the opening black and white sequence, interspersed with colour, actually, at the start of Casino Royale. And then it was a massive down for me. And it's a real shame because it's got some of the worst product placement in the franchise, and I go into Bond films wanting bad product placement. Let this agenda be a particularly unpleasant and humiliating one.
You're listening to the Shires and Ireland Agenda.
Another edition of the Shires and Ireland Agenda in the can. We'll be back next week. I'm not going to say what day it is. I even said tonight's programme earlier on. That was a slight mistake. Take care. Ta-ra now.
Bye, everybody.